Hey everyone, Sleepy Reader here. Um, it's a sunny day. I just got back from my comic book shop and I had a huge haul. It came to a lot more money than I expected, but I guess just everything came in this week for a lot of stuff I'm collecting. Also, I ordered through my shop Providence Volume 3, which I got the other two volumes online, I guess, or maybe at other shops, and I just thought I'd get it through my shop. It's the hardback of the Alan Moore series that he's just wrapped up recently. I think Volume 3 is the last volume. And I read the first volume, or maybe part of the first volume, and then decided I wanted to read the whole story at once. My comic book shop thinks that Avatar is screwing people by putting it out into three hardbacks instead of one volume. I suppose eventually it will come out in one volume. I didn't even think of that. I've just been grabbing the hardbacks because I like to have hardbacks, and it's Alan Moore. So, wow, it's got a lot of text. It's got the guy's diaries in it. From what I remember of the first volume, the diaries often tell the same story as in the comic book, in the issue, only with slightly different details or a little more detail or something. So it's an interesting kind of approach. The art in here is kind of bland. Maybe that goes with the story. I remember liking the art, but just looking at it now, it looks bland again. So maybe the art seems better when you're actually reading. So hopefully these three volumes now will be a fun read for me. Probably a very slow read compared to other comics. And maybe or maybe not, I'll do a video about it. I don't know. It depends on my time and my mood. The hardest thing I find is to do my comic book thoughts about some long chunk of stuff, like in a trade, or in this case, three trades. Then my shop owner he lately seems to slip in ash cans for me. So this is Mike Mignola, a comic book sampler. Actually looks kind of beat up. So maybe he just found it in some old thing and decided I might like it. So I got Mech Cadet U #2 from Boom Comics. This is a really appealing cover. I think the coloring in here is really appealing. Who did the color? Colored by Triona Farrell. I have not heard of that colorist before. But it's a little different of a palette than you see in most comics these days. I found the first issue kind of very standard issue for what you might imagine a giant robot story would be like. But that's still fun, but I hope that there's some more twists coming up. I got issue #3 of Sacred Creatures, which is a comic co-created by Klaus Janson and this other creator, Raimondi. And I read the first issue and really liked it, so I added it to my pull. I've got the second issue to read. I haven't read it yet. I did have issues with it. Like there seemed to be, it's a good story with maybe some problems with the writing, but really, really nice artwork by Raimondi. And I think Klaus Janson is going to take over later on the art, at least for some issues. It's from Image. It's extra thick, and it costs $1 more than the average book, but it's definitely a lot for your money. So hopefully this and the other issue that I haven't read yet will be good. Ghost Money, I haven't read yet. This is issue 2. I haven't read issue 1 yet. It's kind of a result of my getting previews now, and it was just something I found in previews. But once I got it, I realized it's probably a reprint of a European comic, and I'm less happy about getting European comics in the standard American comic book form because I think the art is meant to be much bigger. So you see a lot of little panels here. But I could be wrong. I can't remember. There's another oddity that I'm getting from Titan. This is Lion Forge. Another one I'm getting from Titan that I think is in this stack too, that is clearly a reprint of a European album. Here's Mr. Miracle #2. Love this cover. I think the cover A's are by Nick Darrington. I'd love if they come back and do more New Gods, that they have Nick Darrington do some New Gods, because I love his artwork, and he seems to take on a slightly different style for these Mr. Miracle covers. Spy Seal, I enjoyed issue number 1. This comic is in an odd spot where it looks and has some of the feel of a kid's comic, but I don't think it's totally a kid's comic, at least not for the age of my daughter. My daughter would find this story very boring, and there's certain adult innuendos in it that she would find even less interesting. I might try reading it with her anyway if she ever is interested. American Gods, I should drop this book, but I for some reason I'm not. Kaiju Max, one of my favorite comics, season 3, issue 3. That means it's like halfway over already. I think he does 6 issues a season. So that's kind of a bummer in a way. This season has returned to focus more on the prison island, whereas season 2 was more about life off of the prison island. And I got so into that life off of the prison island that to a certain degree I'm a little disappointed to be back on the prison island, but it does sort of update the storylines that were going on more in season 1 than season 2. So anyway, it's still really good. Curse Words I've always enjoyed, but this one I enjoy. The last few issues I've enjoyed even more. It seems to be building up in a way that I thought it would lose momentum, to tell the truth. Is this a cover A or... It's cover A, huh? The color doesn't look as good as the usual Curse Words cover. Action Comics. Will I find out who Mr. Oz is now? Do I really want to find out? I really hope this is good, because I felt like everything's been downhill since the last sort of special event in Action Comics and Superman. I have officially dropped Superman, but I can still pick it up if I want to. That's not one that I will miss out on because it's not on my pull list. Divided States of Hysteria by Howard Chaykin. I'm still enjoying this, but in issue 1 and 2, I kind of got a thrill of of Howard Chaykin, taking no prisoners and smashing everybody and everything in the American political system and American culture. But I think I'm going to get tired of that after a while, and I don't know if the dynamics between the group of... It's kind of like the Suicide Squad or something in a sense, basically. Gather together a bunch of serial killers, although one of them really isn't, and send them on a mission to kill terrorists. We'll see if this maintains my interest. I do like this cover a lot. I think it's the next issue that would have had the cover of the hanged and mutilated person. I don't think this is the replacement cover for that, but I might be wrong. I can't remember which issue that was. Super excited for Kill or Be Killed. This has just continued to be one of my favorites. I continue to have only one complaint about it, which is kind of the monotonous covers. There was one really good cover, maybe it was that last issue, that had the devil creature on it, but this is kind of back to the standard thing. How many poses of this guy in his hood and scarf can we look at? I'm a little tired of that. Birthright. Birthright's been very good. This is an interesting cover. Kind of creepy. I think they're just back from their hiatus. I'm going to have to refresh myself on what's going on, but this is another one of my favorite books. Like Mark, Ghost Critic, I saw him talking about how he can't resist Realm because it's got this mix of sci-fi and fantasy and horror. And that's my thing too. I keep trying most of the fantasy comics. I love sci-fi comics, although there's a lot more of those, so I sometimes skip them. This cover really grabbed me, so I just put this on my pull list ahead of time in hopes it would be good. Detective Comics, one of my favorite DC superhero comics right now, so I hope it keeps going. Dystopia, I think this is part 2 of a storyline that started last issue. I have to refresh my memory on it. I know there was some stuff going on with Clayface, and I feel like there was some other story threads. Did Red Robin come back, or is he still just threatened to come back? I can't remember. We, of course, no spoiler, we know he's alive, a captive of Mr. Oz, but Batman and crew think he's dead. Oh, kind of sad. This is a cool cover. Different colors for Richard Corbin. His Shadows of the Grave. I've come to enjoy this more and more with each issue as I get more and more into the groove of his way of doing short horror stories, which are almost like little snippets, but incredible art. Amazing that I don't know, what is he approaching 80 or so? He hasn't lost it at all. I think he has an assist, maybe from his daughter or someone, granddaughter, um, grandchild, I think, to do the gray shades, the gray tones. Let me see. Gray toning by Beth Corbin Reed. So I assume that's a married daughter or the like. But Corbin, I'm amazed at how good Corbin is, all these years later. Because I first learned about Corbin, I guess, in 1977 or 76, whenever heavy metal first came out. Gru, another older creative person who's been around forever, who's kicking butt, is Sergio Aragonés. His Gru comics are as good as, or to me, sometimes better than ever. I do think he benefits from the modern slick paper. I look at the old Epic comics and stuff, which are great, but printed on newsprint. And I love how the colors pop in these newer issues. I think it's still the same colorist, but you don't have to have the really complicated modern coloring like on this cover to have great colors on this slicker paper. It makes cartoony coloring pop in a wonderful way. In fact, one of my few problems with New Superman has been the coloring. The coloring has been the weakest link on New Superman. I think although this page looks pretty good, I think it's another big favorite of mine of DC Comics, a big favorite superhero comic right now. This has just gone from strength to strength to strength. Now, last issue we had introduced the Suicide Squad, and here they're featured on the cover. And I hope this doesn't ruin the batting average of this comic too much. Because usually when you bring in some crossover guest kind of things, that's just a gimmick. I love that kind of thing when I was a kid, and it seemed to fit the old Marvel comics and stuff. But and there's natural ways, because this New Superman is definitely an inhabitant of the DC universe, and there was great appearances by Lex Luthor and stuff. But I'm more suspicious of the Suicide Squad as a way to just goose sales. Now their sales have plummeted on that comic. I saw it's like a fraction of what it was when Rebirth came out. So I think that's one of the comics, New Superman, that's in danger. And I would say buy the trades, jump on the current issues, get them in the bargain bins, because New Superman is really if you like superheroes, a really fun superhero. Grass Kings. Is this cover? This is cover 1. This is clearly an homage to old pulp Western covers on paperback books. I love it. I thought Grass Kings was taking a hiatus, but here it is right back. Beautiful, beautiful book. In some of the recent issues, the art seemed to get a little sloppy, so I was kind of thinking a hiatus might be a good thing to give the artist a little more time, since these are drawing and watercolor paintings together. Maybe it takes longer to do, and there's actually, I think in most issues, quite a lot more pages, starting with this spread that starts on the front cover. Amazing Boom comic. I assume that's creator owned. I'm almost through. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. I actually am now an issue behind on this, although I just recently jumped on it and I've enjoyed what I read a lot. Not as good as the other DC comics I'm reading, but I kind of enjoy the crossover with the New Gods and the whole outer space stuff. It's fun. And finally, this is the one from Titan that I believe is a European comic. Hercules, Wrath of Heavens. And I thought this sounded really cool, but so far I haven't read it. You can even see at times that, I've a lot of full bleeds here, so it's harder to tell. So maybe they've been fixing it with full bleeds, but you can kind of see there, it's not quite the right proportions for a comic book, but it looks like they've kind of enlarged the pages to turn them into full bleeds. I should read this and I'll probably like it, but I just have that lingering bitterness that I should have gotten it in a European album style, and that's probably how it'll come out when it's in hardback after this. I think this is a six-issue miniseries. So that's my haul. I have a bunch of videos I ought to be doing, so I hope to find time to do them. I'd like to show you my haul from Rose City Comic Con and kind of talk about what the con was like at the same time. I had a lot of interesting little encounters there, and I had a good time. Not quite as good as last year for a couple different reasons, but I need to stop it there. I need to go pick up my daughter at school from her after-school program, Art for Life. I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.